Right now, somewhere in the United States, a packed stadium is roaring as the 2026 World Cup plays out in front of tens of thousands of fans. The noise, the flags, the floodlights cutting through the night sky, the full spectacle of the biggest sporting event on the planet, doing exactly what it was designed to do. But a decade ago, a different World Cup stadium was being built for that exact same dream, deep in the Amazon, far from Brazil's traditional football heartlands. And today, vines are growing through its parking lot. Inside, rows of seats once filled for an England match now sit faded and empty, watched mostly by insects drifting in from the surrounding rainforest. The paint on the exterior has started to peel in patches. The air inside smells like rain and concrete and the slow patience of a jungle that has been here far longer than any stadium ever will be. And the story of how this place ended up here, how one of the most visually striking arenas ever built for a World Cup became a symbol of exactly what not to do, is something you genuinely need to hear. Brazil spent roughly $300 million building a stadium with 44,000 seats in Manaus, a city in the middle of the Amazon rainforest without a top-flight football club capable of regularly filling it. A city most international football fans could not have found on a map before June 2014. It hosted 4 matches during the 2014 World Cup. Today, many local matches here draw crowds in the hundreds, inside a stadium built for more than 40,000 people. The math on that is difficult to ignore. We are going to look at why a stadium built for a global audience never found a local one, and what that says about what happens when cities build for a moment instead of a future. To understand how this happened, you have to go back to 2007, when FIFA awarded Brazil the 2014 World Cup. The announcement triggered immediate celebration. Brazil had hosted the tournament once before, in 1950, and this felt like a long overdue return. But FIFA had conditions. The tournament would need to be spread across multiple host cities, 12 in total, representing the full geographic breadth of the country. That requirement pulled the World Cup deep into regions of Brazil that had never hosted international football before. Manaus, capital of the Amazon state of Amazonas, was one of them. The logic from a political standpoint was understandable. Brazil is a vast country, and concentrating a national celebration only in Rio and Sao Paulo would have felt like an exclusion of the interior. Manaus had a stadium, the old Vivaldo Lima Arena, and it had civic pride, and it had the Amazon itself, one of the most iconic backdrops on the planet. What it didn't have was a straightforward way to get there. Unlike every other World Cup host city in 2014, Manaus has no reliable overland connection to the rest of Brazil. The city is reachable by plane or by river, a journey of days from most major Brazilian cities. Getting tens of thousands of international fans to Manaus for a group stage match required a logistical operation that most tournament organizers would normally avoid entirely. Despite that, construction began in 2010. The old stadium was demolished to make way for something completely new, a purpose-built arena designed from the ground up for the World Cup. The design chosen was striking. A woven lattice exterior meant to evoke a traditional Amazonian basket, a deliberate visual reference to the indigenous craftsmanship of the region. It was a building that was supposed to say something about pride, about belonging, about the Amazon's place in the story of modern Brazil. Building it was a different story. Construction in the Amazon presents challenges that don't exist anywhere else: extreme heat and humidity, unpredictable seasonal flooding, and supply chains that depend almost entirely on river transport. Materials that would arrive by truck in Sao Paulo came to Manaus by boat. Delays accumulated. Costs rose. By the time the arena was finished in early 2014, it had taken 4 years and consumed a budget that had grown significantly from original projections. But it was finished. And in June 2014, the world came to Manaus. The 4 matches played here that month were memorable for reasons beyond the football. The heat was extraordinary. Temperatures in the stadium regularly exceeded 35 degrees Celsius with humidity to match. Players requested cooling breaks. Fans arrived from Europe and struggled visibly with conditions that are simply part of daily life for anyone who lives here. The England versus Italy match, played in those conditions, has since become one of the most discussed group stage games of that entire tournament. Not just for the result, but for the sheer physical spectacle of watching elite athletes compete in equatorial heat at midnight. For those few weeks, the Arena da Amazônia was exactly what it was meant to be: full, loud, watched by hundreds of millions of people around the world. Then the World Cup ended, and the real story began. Manaus had no major professional club playing at a level that could regularly fill a stadium this size. The expectation, as with most World Cup venues, was that the arena would eventually pay for itself through local football, concerts, conventions, and other events. That the investment would find its justification in the years that followed. That expectation has been difficult to meet. Multiple reports in the years since the World Cup describe maintenance costs running into the hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Security, cleaning, pitch upkeep, the structural demands of keeping a building that size functional in a tropical climate. Revenue from local matches and events has fallen consistently short of covering those costs. Without a strong local club capable of drawing large crowds, organizers turned to whatever they could book. Everything from weddings and religious gatherings to occasional concerts. Events that in most cities would be considered unusual uses for a 44,000-seat football stadium. Numbers tell the story year by year. After the 2014 World Cup, the arena had one brief return to the spotlight, hosting matches during the 2016 Olympic football tournament, which brought a short wave of attention and activity back to the stadium. And then that too passed, and the quiet returned. Local league games in the seasons since have regularly drawn attendances in the hundreds, occasionally over 1,000, sometimes more, on good nights with the right fixture. But the images that circulate most widely from the Arena da Amazônia in the years after 2014 are not images of packed stands. They are images of vast empty bowls, of a handful of fans scattered across seating built for a crowd 40 times their number. Sections of the roofing have been removed since the tournament. Maintenance too costly to justify on a structure hosting so few events. The once vivid colors of the seating have faded under years of direct equatorial sun. The lattice exterior that was so celebrated when it opened has weathered visibly. By the mid-2020s, regional authorities had explored privatizing the stadium, an attempt to transfer the financial burden from the public accounts to a private operator willing to find new uses for the building. Whether that process will succeed in fundamentally changing the stadium's trajectory remains, at the time of writing, an open question. And that's where Manaus becomes more than just a World Cup story. Brazil didn't fail to build a stadium. By every engineering and architectural measure, the Arena da Amazônia is considered one of the most striking venues built for the 2014 tournament. It is genuinely beautiful. The design is original. The construction, given the challenges involved, was an achievement. What failed was something harder to build than a stadium. What failed was a plan for the 50 weeks a year when the World Cup wasn't in town. The failure happened in the years nobody was watching, in the gap between the world's cameras are here and the world's cameras left. And this, more than any specific number or any particular decision, is what makes the Manaus story resonate far beyond Brazil. Because Manaus is not an outlier, it is a pattern.
Athens built 36 venues for the 2004 Olympics and found a use for only a fraction of them. Brasilia spent close to $1 billion on a football stadium for a city without a football culture to support it. City after city, tournament after tournament, the same cycle repeats. The bid is won, the money is committed, the construction is rushed, the event is celebrated, and then the cameras leave, and the real costs begin. What every one of these cities had in common was ambition without a second act, a plan for opening day, and very little plan for the decade that followed. The lattice exterior of the Arena da Amazônia is still there, catching the afternoon light the same way it did in 2014.
The seats are still bolted in place, row after row, fading a little more each year under a sun that never relents. For a few weeks in the summer of 2014, this was one of the most watched places on the planet. Players from some of the greatest football nations on Earth competed here. Cameras from every continent pointed at this building. The jungle beyond the stadium walls was, briefly, a backdrop for something the whole world was watching. Somewhere else right now, in 2026, a new World Cup is filling new stadiums with that exact same energy. New host cities are making the same promises. New arenas are being celebrated. And in some of those cities, the question of what comes after is still waiting to be answered. Manaus is what happens when that question doesn't get answered in time. The World Cup lasted just 4 matches. The jungle has had a decade to grow back.